My name is Natalie Monroe. I'm 32, and I never thought the worst moment of my life would happen at a wedding, especially not mine. Well, not my wedding, exactly. My sister Savannah's. The DJ had just lowered the music. The lights dimmed. Everyone raised their glasses to toast the perfect couple. And that's when my mother turned toward me and said, loud enough for the entire room to hear, "At least Savannah isn't a lifelong disappointment." Right in front of my fiancé. Have you ever felt the floor fall out from under you without moving an inch? Drop a comment if you've ever had to keep smiling while your heart was breaking. What happened next? Let's just say I didn't stay for the cake. But let me back up, because the real story started long before the champagne. The clink of champagne flutes echoed under the vaulted beams of the lakeside lodge. White lights blinked softly around the chandelier. Savannah looked perfect, of course, cheeks flushed with just the right shade of coral, her lace train spread behind her like a Pinterest board come to life. I stood to the side of the head table, one hand lightly on my fiancé Derek's arm, the other clutching a glass of too sweet champagne. He leaned in and whispered, "You okay?" I nodded too quickly. The truth was, I'd been holding my breath all day. My role had been clear from the moment I arrived. Smile, help, stay out of the pictures unless invited. Savannah's sorority sisters floated around in matching satin robes this morning while I stood by the coffee urn, steaming my dress in a corner. I'd chalked it up to logistics. Then came the dress switch. Then the place card, mistake that left Derek and me at a far end of the reception hall. And now this. "Let's raise a glass to the bride," my mother said, her voice slicing through the room like an ice chip in a champagne fountain. She stood, tall and polished in navy blue, her hand steady as stone around the crystal flute. "Savannah has always been our light, our joy. She lights up every room she walks into." Polite laughter. I took a small sip of my drink, trying not to flinch. She's known what she wanted since she was 5 years old. Ballet, business, James. She went after them all with purpose and grace. More laughter, this time from the groomsmen's table. My sister blushed, looking down like she'd never heard it before. I knew better. "And I just thank God," my mother continued, "that she's never made us worry. Never made us wonder if she'd turn out okay." My stomach tightened. My free hand found the seam of my dress, pinching the fabric between two fingers. "Not every child is so easy," she added, her eyes scanning the room and landing directly on me. "At least Savannah isn't a lifelong disappointment." My ears buzzed. For a second, I thought maybe I'd misheard, but Derek's hand froze on my back. And the silence, the absolute vacuum that followed, confirmed it. She said it. Out loud. In front of my fiancé. In front of 100 guests. The laugh came from the next table. Thomas, my brother, half drunk and half pleased. "Come on, Nat," he said, raising his glass. "You know she doesn't mean it." But she did. She always had. Only now, she wasn't even hiding it. I looked at Savannah. Her eyes dropped immediately. Not a word. Not even a glance in my direction. I placed my champagne glass gently on the linen-covered table. And then I walked. No scene. No storming out. Just one foot in front of the other. Past the gift table. Past the waitstaff carrying trays of stuffed mushrooms. Past the photo booth where two cousins were trying on fake mustaches. The cold air hit my face like a blessing. Derek caught up outside, breath visible in the night air. "Do you want me to go back in, get our things?" I nodded. "Just our overnight bag, leave everything else." He hesitated. "You sure?" "I'm not going back in there, Derek." My voice cracked, softer than I expected. Not loud, not angry, just final. The valet, to his credit, didn't ask questions. He brought our truck around while I stared out over the frozen lake, the fairy lights reflecting dimly off the ice. Inside the truck, I gripped the edge of the seat with both hands. My dress itched suddenly. I tugged at the neckline. The blush-colored chiffon felt like a joke now picked because it flatters everyone, but I knew the truth. It blended me into the background. Derek climbed in beside me and handed over my overnight bag. Got it, he said quietly. Wanna talk? I stared straight ahead, fingers trembling in my lap. She's said worse, I murmured. I know. But never like that. Not like I was a stranger. You're not, he said. Not to me. I turned my head, tears stinging the corners of my eyes. I can't go back in there. You don't have to. I looked down at my lap. A cloth napkin had fallen into my hands. I must have grabbed it without realizing. Pale pink. Immaculate. I crumpled it slowly, then folded it again. Then held it between my palms like it might absorb the sting in my chest. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel ashamed for walking away. I felt free, but also empty. Because if I didn't belong there at my own sister's wedding, with my own family, where did I belong at all? The engine idled softly. We didn't move. Didn't speak. Just sat in the parking lot, the wedding still going on behind us. And me sitting in a bridesmaid dress, clutching a napkin, wondering if maybe this was the moment I stopped pretending it wasn't all broken. The parking lot lights flickered behind the lodge as we pulled away, the soft thump of wedding music still leaking through the walls like it had no idea what just happened. I didn't speak for most of the drive. Derek didn't press. We passed neon motel signs and rows of shuttered souvenir shops on the way back to our Airbnb. The kind with log cabin wallpaper and fake wood paneling. It was supposed to be rustic. Romantic. Now it just felt like a holding pen. I sat down on the edge of the bed and unzipped my dress like I was peeling off a version of myself I'd never wanted to wear. Derek stood across the room, still in his shirt and slacks, watching me with that quiet kind of concern he always wore when he knew I was slipping into my own head. You want water? He asked. I nodded, not because I was thirsty, but because it gave him something to do. As soon as the door shut behind him, I walked to the bathroom mirror and stared. My mascara had smudged in a crescent beneath my left eye. There was glitter on my cheekbone from hugging Savannah before the ceremony. I looked like I'd been trying too hard. That part, at least, was accurate. I wiped my face clean, and when I reached for the towel, something in the mirror behind me caught my eye, my phone, buzzing silently on the side table. 5 messages. All from my mother. I didn't open them. Instead, I grabbed the quilt off the bed and curled up in the armchair by the fake fireplace. The room was too quiet, and the quiet made space for the kind of thoughts I usually kept buried under work and errands and weather talk. She said I was a disappointment. In front of 100 people. But she'd been saying it in different ways for years. I thought back to high school, my senior awards night. I'd won a statewide essay competition. First place. There was even a photo of me on the school website holding my plaque. Konya hadn't come. She was helping Savannah prep for her junior prom hair trial, fake tan, picking between 2 nearly identical corsages. When I came home that night with my certificate in hand, she barely looked up from her phone. That's nice, she said. Have you picked out what you're wearing to church Sunday? That shirt's not flattering. The ache that settled in my chest that night never fully left. And still, I tried. All through college. Nursing school. Working the overnight shift in the urgent care unit, saving up to help Derek finish his HVAC training. Every time I hit a milestone, I thought, maybe this will be the one that makes her proud. But it was never enough. And now I had proof. Witnesses. Derek came back in with 2 water bottles. He handed me one and crouched beside the armchair. You need anything? I shook my head. I should have done something, he said, eyes low. Said something, I didn't expect her to. You couldn't have stopped her, I said softly. She's been practicing that speech for years. He exhaled and leaned his arms on my knees. I'm sorry, he said. I reached for his hand, lacing my fingers through his. Me too. He nodded slowly, then added, You don't have to explain anything to me. I've seen enough. I believed him. But I didn't feel understood. Not fully. How do you explain a lifetime of being overlooked in your own family? It wasn't just that Savannah got the bigger bedroom. Or the new car at 16. or the custom engagement party when James proposed. It was the way I was always described as the serious one, the responsible one, the one who didn't need much, as if needing love was a weakness, as if my ability to endure deserved less. I thought about the wedding favors, tiny jars of locally sourced honey wrapped in pastel tulle. I'd stayed up 2 nights helping Savannah tie those bows. No one mentioned it. No one even knew. Except Derek. And maybe that was the beginning of something I hadn't let myself feel yet. Maybe I was finally done shrinking. Done waiting for applause that was never coming. "I'm gonna take a shower," I said, squeezing his hand once before letting go. "Okay." I stood, grabbed my overnight bag, and paused at the dresser. Sitting on top was the invitation cream cardstock, gold foil, embossed with Savannah and James' initials. I had saved it, tucked inside a notebook like it was something worth keeping. I tore it in half. Slowly. Quietly. Then I stepped into the bathroom, closed the door, and let the water run hot. I stood under the stream until my skin stung. When I got out, I wrapped myself in a towel and stared again at the mirror. My reflection didn't look different, but something had shifted beneath the surface. Not broken. Unburied. My phone buzzed again from the nightstand. I didn't need to check. I already knew what it would say. And for the first time, I didn't care. The next morning, I woke up before the sun cracked through the motel blinds. I hadn't slept much. Maybe 2 hours, maybe 3. My body felt sore all over, like I'd run a marathon without ever leaving the room. Derek was still asleep, one arm slung over his chest. I watched his chest rise and fall, steady and soft. I used to envy how easily he could let go of things at night. I pulled the covers back, padded into the bathroom, and stared at myself again in that cracked mirror. Still May. But maybe not the same. Back on the dresser sat my phone. 10 unread messages now. 4 missed calls. 1 voicemail. All from my mother. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the screen, thumb hovering just above the voicemail button. A small part of me wanted to hear it just in case she sounded sorry. Just in case she regretted it. Just in case this was the time she'd finally say what I'd spent my entire life waiting to hear. But that part of me was exhausted. Derek stirred behind me. "You okay?" he asked, voice low and raspy. I shrugged. Still deciding. He sat up slowly. "Did she call?" Voicemail. "Probably furious. Do you want to talk to her?" That was the part that caught me. He didn't say, "You should." He asked if I wanted to. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at my phone like it held something sacred. Or maybe poisonous. "I used to think," I said finally, "that if I could just be better, if I did everything right, she'd see me." I set the phone down like it burned. But all it ever did was make me disappear. Derek nodded slowly. "You know you don't owe her anything, right?" It wasn't a question, it was a permission slip. I picked up my phone again. Swiped to the voicemail. Listened for a second. Then pressed delete. The second it vanished, I felt it, not joy. Not freedom. But a strange quiet. Like someone had finally stopped yelling, even if I'd only just realized they'd been yelling the whole time. Derek stood and stretched. "Want me to get us some breakfast?" I shook my head. Not hungry yet. After he left, I opened my overnight bag and pulled out a bundle I hadn't meant to pack. It was one of those panic-packing moments you grab whatever's clean and nearby. It was an old cardigan. Faded gray. A little too tight in the arms now. I used to wear it to every family dinner. Every birthday. Every church service. It was safe, neutral, unthreatening. I didn't even like it. But I wore it like armor. Because it made me smaller. Made me fit in. I held it in my lap for a long time, running my fingers over the frayed cuffs. The last time I wore it was Thanksgiving. I'd offered to help cook, cleaned up the kitchen after Savannah forgot, and spent most of dinner listening to Connie talk about how Savannah's fiancé had real potential, and how grateful she was to have raised children who knew how to land someone respectable. I didn't even flinch that time. just nodded and kept chewing. That sweater that whole evening was a costume. And I was done performing. I stood up, walked to the motel room trash can, and stuffed it down inside. It didn't deserve a drawer. Or a goodbye. Derek came back 20 minutes later with coffee and egg sandwiches. Trash day? He asked, spotting the sweater poking out of the bin. Something like that. He handed me a coffee and sat beside me. You sure you're okay? I took a long sip, letting the warmth settle somewhere deep. I'm not okay, I said. But I'm clear. He nodded. I keep thinking about what she said, I admitted. Not the words I've heard those before. But the fact that she said them like they were facts. Like she expected everyone to agree. Yeah, he said. And some of them probably did. The honesty stung. But he wasn't wrong. I set the coffee down and looked at him. What if leaving isn't giving up? What if it's the only thing I've ever done that wasn't about proving something to her? Derek smiled, not wide, but warm. I think that's exactly what it is. The motel clock clicked over to 9 a.m. In a few hours, the brunch reception would start. The family would be gathered again, passing around leftover mimosas and pretending nothing happened. Connie would be spinning her version of the story. Savannah would be helping. And I'd be here, eating a breakfast sandwich with the one person who never asked me to be smaller. For once, I didn't feel like I was missing out. It started with a ding. Then another. Then 27 more. I was sitting in the motel lobby, sipping coffee from a styrofoam cup while Derek packed the truck. We were heading back to Rolla, though I wasn't sure why. It didn't feel like home anymore. Maybe it never did. The family group chat was called Monroe Crew, a name Savannah had chosen back when emojis were still cute and group messages weren't battlegrounds. Now, it might as well have been a firing squad. The first message came from Aunt Denise. Just catching up, sounds like there was some confusion at the wedding. Hope everyone's okay. Confusion. That was generous. Then came Uncle Rick. Really sorry things went sideways. Hate to see families divided like this. Maybe we all need to take a breath? And then the one that set my jaw tight, Savannah. I'm heartbroken that my day turned into something so painful. I love all of you. Just praying we can move forward. No mention of why it turned painful. No mention of what our mother said. No accountability. Just decorum wrapped in glitter. I watched the typing bubbles pulse on and off. Everyone was walking on eggshells, not to protect me, but to protect the narrative. Then Connie chimed in. This has been hard on all of us. Some of us just express things differently. Let's not let one person's feelings rewrite what was a beautiful weekend for Savannah and James. I put the phone face down on the table and stared at the coffee in my hands. One person's feelings. Like I'd imagined it. Like I was overreacting. Like being publicly humiliated by your own mother was just an expression. My heart thudded. A voice inside whispered, "Don't do it. Don't take the bait." But another voice, the one that had stayed quiet most of my life, said, "Say something." I picked the phone up again. My thumbs hovered. What was I supposed to say? You all heard her. You just didn't care. Or maybe, if I'd said something like that to Savannah, you'd have burned me at the stake. But the words never came out. Because deep down, I already knew it wouldn't change anything. The story was already being rewritten. Me, the unstable one. The oversensitive one. The sister who made it about herself. I stared out the motel window. The clouds hung low and flat, like a lid on the sky. A new ping. From my cousin Carla. Hey Nat. I just wanted to say I saw your face when she said it. It wasn't right. You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry I didn't speak up. My eyes burned. It wasn't much. But it was something. I tapped back. Thank you, that means more than you know. Another ping. Savannah, again. Just so everyone's aware, we're not engaging in drama. Let's keep this chat positive. Right. Keep it positive. Even if it kills someone's spirit. I scrolled back to Connie's message. Read it again and again. Then I clicked her name. Blocked. My thumb hesitated over the group chat itself. Leave? No, not yet. But I did mute it. Permanently. Derek walked in a moment later, keys in hand. We good? Yeah, I said. Truck's ready? Yep. We drove in silence for a while, the tires humming against the road like white noise. Then Derek said, You know they'll keep spinning it. I nodded. I just didn't expect her to be so calm about it. I admitted. Like she's already forgiven herself. He looked over at me. She's had years of practice. That hit harder than I expected. Because it was true. And I'd spent just as many years explaining her behavior to myself. To others. Dismissing the bruises she left as tough love or just how she is. The problem wasn't just that she said it. It was that no one was surprised. We stopped for gas outside of Springfield. While Derek filled the tank, I went inside for a snack. By the register, a little wire rack held tourist magnets, ones that said things like Branson, where family happens, and life's better in the Ozarks. I picked one up, pink script on a fake wood background. Family. The people who love you no matter what. I almost laughed. Because that was the lie I'd lived under for 3 decades. Back in the car, I opened a granola bar and stared out the window. My phone buzzed again, a different thread this time. Just 3 people. Me, Savannah, Thomas. The message was from Thomas. Mom's really upset. Hope you're proud of yourself. Can't believe you'd ruin her speech and the wedding. Real classy. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. Another message popped up. From Savannah. Let's just not make this worse. That did it. I opened the thread, clicked the settings, and hit leave conversation. Gone. I exhaled. It wasn't peace. But it was quieter. And that was a start. We got back to Rolla just after dark. The house was quiet, the porch light flickering like it hadn't made up its mind whether to keep trying. Inside, everything looked the same, the throw blanket folded over the back of the couch, the stack of unopened mail on the entry table, the smell of lemon cleaning spray and faint dust. But something in me had shifted. I walked through the house like I didn't live there. Like I'd stumbled into the home of someone who used to want a mother. I dropped my bag by the door and headed straight for the bedroom. Derek didn't follow. He knew when I needed space. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the dresser. Second drawer down. Back corner. There was a box I hadn't touched in over a year. I pulled it out now like I was checking on a wound. Inside were things I used to think mattered. A letter from my nursing school director. A worn photo of me and Savannah in matching Easter dresses. I couldn't have been older than 8. And a birthday card from my mom. One of the rare ones where she actually wrote something instead of just signing love, Mom. I held it like it might fall apart. So proud of how hard you work. Just don't forget to smile more. That was her version of love. Conditional. Pretty. Punctuated with advice I didn't ask for. I used to think these little crumbs meant she cared. But now, sitting there with that card in my lap, all I could feel was the weight of what never was. She never asked how my night shifts were going. She never came to the pinning ceremony when I got my nursing license. She didn't even tell her friends I was engaged, not until Savannah's wedding planning made it useful to mention. I used to think if I just kept trying, kept showing up, kept being useful, maybe one day she'd notice I was already enough. That hope. It died sometime between the champagne toast and the group text. And now that it was gone, I wasn't sure who I was without it. Because for 32 years, I'd been the daughter who tried. And without that, what was left? I pressed the birthday card shut and put it back in the box. Then I reached for the photo. It was bent at the corner. We were standing on the porch of our old house, Savannah in a pink ruffle dress, me in blue. She was grinning. I was squinting into the sun. My mother's hand was on Savannah's shoulder. Not Mina. It had always been that way. But this was the first time I saw it for what it was. Not a mistake. A pattern. Derek knocked softly on the doorframe. You good? I nodded, but my eyes were glassy. I'm sorting. He stepped inside and sat next to me, careful not to touch anything in the box. "I ever tell you," he said, "about my first year back from Afghanistan?" I shook my head. I used to keep a duffel bag packed in my closet. Just in case. Boots. MREs. Flashlight. Cash. Like I was gonna be called back any minute. Like I wasn't really home. He looked down at his hands. I was grieving something I couldn't name. Not a person, not a place, just the version of myself I thought I'd be. The one who made it through. I let that settle. Because I knew exactly what he meant. I wasn't grieving my mother. I was grieving the version of her I kept inventing. The one who would eventually see me. Apologize. Call me brave. The one who never existed. Tears slipped down my cheeks, soft and quiet. I wanted her to love me without a condition. I whispered. I really did. Derek put a hand on my back, firm and steady. She didn't. But that doesn't make you unlovable. I closed the box and slid it back into the drawer. I didn't throw it away. Not yet. But I didn't need it open anymore, either. Later that night, I sat on the porch while Derek cooked dinner. The air smelled like damp leaves and grilled onions. Somewhere in the distance, a neighbor's wind chime played a crooked tune. I watched the sun drop behind the trees and felt something strange inside me. Not peace, exactly. But space. Room where all that pain had been living. And for the first time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, that space wasn't empty. Maybe it was waiting. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen staring at the coffee maker like it owed me something. My hands were steady, my breath even. But my chest buzzed with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. I poured my coffee and opened my laptop. The Wi-Fi was slow, like everything in this town, but it eventually loaded my email. There it was. Still unread. A message from Lisa. Got a guest room, come if you want. It's yours for the weekend, no pressure. Just like her. No push. No pity, just open space. I clicked over to the hospital's website. Lisa had mentioned there were nursing openings. Not in the ER, something calmer. Primary care, better hours. A clean slate. I hovered my cursor over the apply button. Paused. Then minimized the window. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was gravity. Every time I imagined leaving, I thought about the town. My dad, my routine. Even the grocery store with the weird freezer that always fogged up. But mostly, I thought about the narrative. The role I'd always played, the one Connie had written for me a long time ago. Reliable. Nearby. Unmarried. Available. If I left, I wouldn't just be changing my zip code. I'd be refusing the script. And I wasn't sure who I'd be without it. I closed the laptop and sipped my coffee, staring out the window. The backyard looked the same, frost on the patio chairs, one stubborn leaf stuck to the railing. But it felt different. Like it belonged to someone else now. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I didn't have to guess. I know you're hurting, we all are. But silence doesn't heal. Let's be adults and talk face to face, Mom. I read it twice, then again, and laughed. Out loud. Not bitter, just tired. Let's be adults, she wrote. As if I hadn't spent my whole life swallowing things for her comfort. I stood, walked to the fridge, and grabbed a sticky note from the side, the one with our Wi-Fi password scribbled next to a doodle Derek had drawn months ago. I flipped it over and wrote one word. Apply. Then stuck it to my laptop. Derek walked in just as I was pouring the rest of the coffee into a travel mug. You packing? He asked, eyebrows raised. I nodded. Lisa invited me to KC. He didn't flinch. Didn't question it. Want me to drive? I smiled. I think I need to do this one solo. He nodded once, then reached for his keys and handed me the spare. Call me when you get there. I will. Before I left, I grabbed the overnight bag from the hallway closet, the same one I'd packed for Savannah's wedding. It still smelled faintly of hotel, soap, and perfume. But now, it felt like something else. Not an escape bag. A launch bag. I tucked the sticky note inside, zipped it up, and walked out the door. The drive to Kansas City took just under 4 hours. Long enough to second-guess myself. Short enough that I didn't turn around. I played a podcast for the first hour. Turned it off when I realized I hadn't absorbed a word. The silence that followed was loud but not heavy. It was clean. When I pulled into Lisa's driveway, she met me at the door in sweats and a messy bun. "You made it," she said, smiling like she'd just handed me a life raft. Inside, the guest room had pale green walls and a soft quilt folded at the foot of the bed. A tiny glass dish on the nightstand held 2 chocolates. I hadn't even put my bag down before Lisa said, "You don't have to talk about it. Unless you want to." I nodded, throat thick. "Thanks," I said. Later that night, she poured 2 glasses of wine and sat beside me on the couch. "You know," she said. "It took me until I had my daughter to realize my parents weren't going to change. I'll do." I looked at her. "How'd you handle it?" "I stopped inviting them to prove me wrong." She shrugged. "They didn't show up anyway." I let that sink in. Because it wasn't just about disappointment. It was about the hours we spend building altars to people who never even look up, and the life we miss while we wait. That night, I opened my laptop again. Clicked apply. Filled in every line. Before I hit send, I paused. Not out of fear, but because I wanted to remember what it felt like. To choose. The morning after I hit submit on my application, I woke up before Lisa's alarm went off. Her guest room was quiet, soft lights spilling in through sheer curtains, the faint hum of traffic outside reminding me I was somewhere new and, for once, not afraid of it. I checked my phone out of habit. 2 new texts. Both from numbers I hadn't saved. The first was from a bridesmaid I barely knew, one of Savannah's college friends. "Hey, I know it's not my place, but what your mom said, it wasn't okay. We all felt it. I'm sorry we didn't say anything." I blinked at the screen, surprised. Then read it again. That quiet we caught me. They'd all heard it. They just hadn't said a word. The second message came from Aunt Bev. I hadn't heard from her in years, not really. Just quick greetings at holidays, the occasional, "How's work?" as she passed me the mashed potatoes. "Natalie." I wasn't going to say anything. But I can't stay silent. Your mother crossed a line at that wedding. She's done it before, but this time, it was cruel. I see you. I saw it. And I want you to know I believe you. I sat there in bed, my heart thudding in my chest, and realized this was the first time someone in the family had ever said those words to me. I believe you. Not just sympathy. Not a guilt sandwich. But full, bare truth. I didn't know what to do with it. For a second, I even felt defensive. Like I wanted to argue it. Disprove it. Because part of me still thought, was it really that bad? Maybe I imagined the tone. Maybe I made it bigger than it was. But I hadn't. And Bev's message cut straight through that old instinct to justify the wound. I stared at my phone for a long time before finally typing. "Thank you. That means more than you probably realize." Then I muted the conversation. Not because I was upset, but because I needed to protect the stillness I was just beginning to feel. Later that morning, Lisa and I sat on her back patio with mugs of coffee. "I got a message from my aunt," I said. "She actually said it was wrong, what my mom did, like, out loud." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "And how'd that feel?" "Like someone opened a window I didn't realize was stuck shut." She nodded. "Then I got one from a bridesmaid," I added. "Said they all noticed. No one said a thing, but apparently they felt it." "That tracks," she said. "Most people aren't trained for confrontation, especially not in satin dresses holding champagne." I laughed. Short but real. Lisa sipped her coffee. "I know this might sound weird," she said, "but you don't need everyone to get it, or to say sorry. Sometimes one voice is enough to break the spell." She was right. For years, I'd been chasing the collective nod. The family vote of approval. Some unspoken consensus that I was valid. But dignity doesn't come in a bundle pack. There's no group rate on being treated like a human. And suddenly I realized the years I spent trying to earn their kindness weren't about love. They were about avoiding shame. Because shame had always been the weapon. Don't embarrass us. Don't make a scene. Be grateful. Don't act like a victim. But what they called humility was just another word for silence. And I was done buying it. I looked down at my coffee. The mug had a tiny chip on the rim, like it had been through something. Still usable. Still worth holding on to. Just like me. That afternoon, I got another message. This one from a florist in Branson. Hi Natalie, following up on your payment for the reception centerpieces. We just need to confirm final billing before processing. I stared at it for a beat. Of course. Savannah had asked me to put it on my card. Just temporarily, said the planner would sort it out. And I'd done it, no questions. I replied with 2 sentences. Please forward the invoice to Savannah Monroe, Hartley. I will not be responsible for this balance. Send. No apology. No emoji. Just clarity. 10 minutes later, Savannah texted. Are you seriously making this difficult right now? I didn't answer. Because no, I wasn't making it difficult. I was making it clear. And there's a difference. That night, as I lay in bed in Lisa's guest room, I stared at the ceiling fan and thought about every time I'd paid for peace with my dignity. Every favor. Every silence. Every swallowed reaction. And then I remembered Bev's message. I see you. 3 words. And somehow, they felt heavier than 30 years of trying. By the time Monday rolled around, I had already refreshed my email 26 times. Nothing yet. Just a confirmation that my application had been received. But the silence didn't feel like failure this time. It felt like a door waiting to open. Lisa was already at work, and I had the house to myself, a quiet I hadn't experienced in years. Not the awkward silence of family dinners or the suffocating quiet of walking on eggshells. This was clean, voluntary, spacious. I brewed coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop again. For a second, I hovered over the sent folder. I don't know why. Proof, maybe that I'd actually done it. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. But something in me already knew. I let it go to voicemail. 15 seconds later, a transcript popped up. Natalie, I don't know what else to say. I've left messages. This isn't how we handle things in this family. If you want to be part of it, you need to act like family. Okay. I closed the notification before the end. I'd heard enough. If you want to be part of it. As if belonging came with conditions. As if love had rules and fines and dues. I stood up, walked to the fridge, and grabbed a magnet, the one that said, "Be gentle with yourself. You're doing the best you can." Lisa had probably picked it up at Target. I took it off the fridge and pressed it to my chest for a second, like it might absorb some of the ache that had started creeping back in. Then I used it to pin a sticky note to the fridge. Applied. Waiting. Symbolic or not, it made me feel anchored. I hadn't told Derek yet. Not because I was hiding it, but because some small voice in me still whispered, "What if this means you're leaving him too?" It wasn't true. But it was familiar. That guilt of doing something for yourself and immediately wondering who it might hurt. Later that afternoon, I FaceTimed him. He was on the porch back in Rolla, wind chimes clinking softly behind him. "Hey," he said. "How's KC treating you?" "Good. Quiet." He smiled. "You look different." "Different how?" "Like you're not clenching your jaw every 5 minutes." I laughed. "That's a start, right?" "Definitely." I hesitated, fingers curled around my mug. "There's something I didn't tell you yet," I said. Not because I didn't want to, I just needed to do it before I lost my nerve. He leaned forward slightly. "Okay. I applied for a job here. At Lisa's hospital. It's not confirmed yet, but I wanted you to know." His face didn't change, he just nodded slowly. "I figured you might." "You did?" "I know you," he said. I could feel it shifting. The way you talked. The way you didn't ask permission. That made my eyes sting. Are you upset? No, he said. Just wondering if I'm part of the plan. I swallowed. Derek, I want you in it. But I had to move toward this even if you weren't ready yet. He looked down at the screen, then back up at me. I get it, he said. I do. I didn't expect it to move this fast. Neither did I. We sat there for a beat, neither of us speaking. Then he added, I'm proud of you. Just saying. And that, somehow, was heavier than all the fights I didn't have with my mother. That was love. Not performance. Not silence. Not fear. Just someone saying, I see you, and I don't need you to shrink for me. I'll be home Friday, I said. I miss you. I miss you too. Let me know if they call. After we hung up, I walked into the guest room and unzipped my overnight bag. There, right on top, was the cardigan. Not the gray one I'd thrown away, this one was newer, soft green, still carrying the scent of our laundry soap back home. I folded it neatly and set it on the chair. Because I wasn't packing to escape anymore. I was packing to decide. That night, I got a follow-up email from the hospital. They wanted to schedule a video interview. My chest thudded not with fear, but adrenaline. I texted Lisa. Interview. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Her reply came back in seconds. Yes, let's get you the job and a houseplant. I smiled. Because for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't asking anyone for permission. The interview was at 9 a.m. I woke up 2 hours early. Not because I was nervous, at least not in the old way. It wasn't the fear of not being enough. It was the quiet pressure of knowing, this is mine to claim. Lisa made coffee while I sat at the kitchen table in a soft sweater, hair pulled back, resume printed and ready, not that they needed it, but I needed to see it in my hands. Something about paper made it real. The video interview lasted just under 30 minutes. I answered every question without shrinking. Talked about my ER experience. The hours I'd worked through COVID, my patience. My calm in chaos. And when they asked why I wanted to relocate, I told the truth. I've spent a long time being useful. I'm ready to be valued. They nodded. They smiled. And when it ended, the coordinator said, we'll be in touch soon, but I'll be honest, we're excited about you. I ended the call and just sat there, breath stuck halfway between a laugh and a sob. Lisa walked in, held up 2 mugs like a silent cheer. I took one. I think I just got hired. You definitely just got hired. She grinned and plopped onto the couch. I sat down beside her, legs shaky with adrenaline. You okay? I don't know what I am, I said. But it feels like breath. For the first time in a long time. The relief didn't last long. An hour later, my phone buzzed. I ignored the first ping. Then the second. But the third came with a preview that made my stomach twist. The family group chat was active again. It had been quiet for days. Now it lit up like a Christmas tree. This is all getting out of hand. She blocked Mom? She's acting like a victim, not family. Then a voice I didn't expect. Savannah. I know she's hurt, but come on, we were all trying to move forward. There it was. That phrase again. Move forward. Code 4, forget what happened. Code 4, play nice. I felt my hands go cold. And then, another message. Privately. From Savannah. I didn't know what it felt like until James turned on me last week. You were right, I just didn't want to admit it. I stared at it. A small part of me softened. She had, for once, stepped out of the group performance and said something real. But another part of me was tired. Tired of being the mirror other people finally saw themselves in once they were hurt too. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't owe her closure on demand. A moment later, another buzz. Not Savannah. Not Mom. This time, it was from the hospital. Natalie, we'd like to formally offer you the nursing position. Let us know a good time to talk benefits and start date. My hand flew to my chest. I felt the breath leave me. And then come back. Not a gasp. Not a choke. Just return. A wave of mine. I screenshot it. Sent it to Derek with a single line. I got it. His reply came within seconds. Knew you would. I'm proud of you. And then, let's figure out next steps together. Together. That word meant more than any apology my family could have sent. That word, steady, warm, quiet, felt like a door finally opening inward. I closed the group chat. Not muted. Closed. Then I clicked leave conversation. No note. No warning. No explanation. Because this wasn't about performance anymore. I wasn't standing on the stage hoping for applause. I was walking off it. That evening, I went into Lisa's spare room and began packing. Not like before, not frantic or unsure. This time, I folded my clothes neatly. Placed the sticky note that had once read apply into the bottom of the bag. And on top of everything, I laid down my resume. Symbol and record. Proof and portal. This wasn't a restart. It wasn't a clean slate. It was me beginning. Not running. Not fixing. Just arriving. The voicemail came the night before I left Kansas City. I was sitting on Lisa's back porch, a fleece blanket over my legs, watching the dusk settle over the rooftops like smoke. My phone buzzed once, then stilled. Blocked number. I didn't answer. But the transcript appeared on screen anyway. Natalie, I don't know where you got this idea that I'm the villain here. But I raised you. I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me? I hope you're proud. Same voice. Same cadence. Same script. I stared at it, half expecting the words to land like they used to a gut punch, a tightness in the chest. But all I felt was stillness. Like hearing a recording of your own nightmare and realizing the monster was never that big after all. I tapped the message open. Not to call back. Just to listen. I wanted to hear it with different ears. Her voice poured through the speaker, rehearsed, sharp, almost performative. And your father would be ashamed if he saw the way you're treating your family. You think running away makes you strong? It doesn't. It makes you cold. So, that line used to wreck me. I would have spent hours second-guessing. Writing drafts of what I should say. Trying to explain myself to someone who didn't want to understand. But this time, I simply paused the message. Set the phone down on the armrest. And breathed. Because I finally saw it clearly. She hadn't gotten quieter. I'd just stopped listening. She spoke in shame. In control. In reworked history. But I wasn't a character in her version anymore. I was the narrator of my own. A breeze rustled the leaves beside me. The wind chime let out one soft, uneven clang like a sentence interrupted. I smiled. Somewhere deep in my pocket, the phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, a text. I hope your new job is worth destroying your family. I didn't even flinch. Because that kind of guilt only works on people still trying to be forgiven. And I wasn't. I reached into my overnight bag, pulled out a small manila envelope I hadn't touched since the wedding weekend. Inside were a few loose photos, the kind Connie used to stuff in Christmas cards. There was one of Savannah and me on a swing set. Another of my high school graduation. Connie was barely in the frame, arms crossed, half smiling. I looked at them for a moment. Not with longing. Just recognition. This was the past I was no longer inside. I slipped them back into the envelope, sealed it shut, and placed it in the bottom drawer of Lisa's desk. Not trashed. Not honored. Just filo. Lisa came out a few minutes later with 2 cups of tea. You okay? She asked. I nodded. She called. Lisa raised an eyebrow. And? I listened. And? She hasn't changed, I said quietly. But I have. I sipped my tea. It was too hot, but I didn't mind. Because I could finally feel again, and I wasn't scared of the burn. The next morning, I packed my bag slowly. Not because I was dreading the trip, but because I wanted to remember this feeling. The clean edges of closure. I folded the cardigan. zipped up my bag, tucked my job offer letter into the side pocket like a passport to somewhere I actually wanted to go. Before I left, I looked back at the guest room. The sunlight hit the pillow in a way that made it glow. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't bittersweet. It was just done. I didn't play the voicemail again. I didn't carry it with me. Some doors don't need to be slammed to stay closed. Some voices lose their power the moment you stop handing them the mic. I got back to Rolla just before dusk. The porch light was already on, casting a warm circle on the front steps. Derek was waiting there, arms crossed, coffee in hand, like no time had passed at all. But I could tell from the way he stood, a little stiffer, a little quieter, that everything had. He smiled when he saw me. Not the big, relieved kind. The soft, steady one. The kind that said, "I've been rooting for you," even in the silence. I parked, got out, and stood there for a second with my overnight bag still in hand. "Hey," I said. "Hey." He stepped forward and took the bag from me without asking. Just a small gesture, but it landed deeper than I expected. Inside, the house smelled like laundry and lemon, the comfort of routine. I dropped my keys in the dish by the door and looked around like a guest seeing her own home for the first time. "How was the drive?" he asked. "Quiet. I liked it." He nodded. "Hungry?" "Starving." He'd made chili. My favorite. With cornbread from scratch, not the mix. I knew because the sink was still dusted with flour and the pan had that uneven homemade look. We ate in the living room, knees touching on the couch, bowls balanced on throw pillows. He didn't ask about my mother. Didn't ask about Savannah. Just let me be. When we finished, he took both bowls to the sink. I stood and walked to the coat rack, fingers brushing against the hook where I always hung my badge lanyard from the hospital. It was still there. But now, it felt like part of a life I'd outgrown. Derek came back and leaned against the doorway. "You sure about this move?" he asked. I looked at him. His face was open, but not expectant. He wasn't asking to test me, he was asking to know me. "Yeah," I said. "I am." He crossed his arms. "Then I'm sure about something too." "How?" I tilted my head. "Yeah?" He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges, torn from a notebook. I took it slowly, unfolded it, and read the first line. It was a list, titled, "What We'd Need to Move to KC. Realistically." Below it, bullet points in Derek's handwriting. SA. Rent deposit. Transfer licence, HVAC. Sell washer, dryer. Schedule tour. Ask Natalie what she wants first. That last one made my throat tighten. "You wrote this?" "After your interview. Figured we should be planning instead of pretending it's a maybe." I looked at him for a long time. "You're not just saying this to keep me." He shook his head. "I'm saying this because I want to come with you. Not follow, walk next to." I nodded, the pressure behind my eyes sharp and soft all at once. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," he said. "That's why I wanted to." I folded the list and tucked it into my sweater pocket. There was no ring. No grand gesture. Just a list. A plan, a truth. He didn't promise to fix me. Or save me. He just showed up steady, clear, and willing. And for someone who'd spent 32 years trying to earn love by disappearing, that meant more than any proposal. I stepped closer and rested my forehead against his chest. I didn't know love could feel like this. He kissed the top of my head. "It's supposed to," he said. Later that night, I placed the folded list beside my job offer letter. 2 pieces of paper. One for who I was choosing to become, and one for who had chosen me exactly as I already was. The last box I sealed held no heirlooms. Just a few notebooks, a tea mug Derek got me our first winter together, and the cardigan I'd nearly thrown out, not the gray one, but the soft green. The one I'd worn on the day everything shifted. It didn't smell like the past anymore. It smelled like a beginning. The moving truck pulled into the driveway around 10. Derek met the driver while I stood in the doorway of the house we'd both outgrown. It was strange how small it suddenly felt. Like I'd expanded and the walls had stayed the same. I walked room to room, touching nothing. Just noticing. The creak in the hallway floorboard that used to annoy me. The cabinet with the sticky latch that Derek always swore he'd fix. The mark on the wall from when I'd hung a photo too high, then moved it, leaving the nail hole behind. None of it hurt. None of it made me ache. I thought it would this letting go. But all I felt was clarity. Not excitement. Not sadness. Just alignment. My phone had been quiet for 2 days. No messages from Connie. No voicemails, not even a text. And that silence? It used to feel like punishment. Now, it just felt like absence. No trowel. Undemanding. Unnecessary. I didn't check my voicemail. Didn't scroll the family chat one last time. Didn't wonder if maybe just maybe she was finally about to say what I'd always hoped for. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. I stood in the kitchen with the echo of an empty house and took one last look around. The fridge still had our Wi-Fi password magnet on it. Be gentle with yourself. I smiled and left it there. Let the next person inherit that reminder. As I turned to go, Derek caught my eye from the porch. You ready? He asked. I nodded. We didn't linger. We didn't stage a farewell photo or write a note on the counter. We just locked the door. And I slid the key into the mailbox slot, like closing a chapter with punctuation instead of flair. The drive to Kansas City was long, but not heavy. We talked about lease terms, furniture ideas, new grocery stores. He mentioned finding a gym. I joked about adopting a dog. Somewhere between mile marker 192 and 210, I realized I hadn't thought about Connie in over an hour. It wasn't rebellion. It was freedom. We pulled into our new place just before dark. The building was simple, with red brick and wide windows. Lisa met us with a case of sparkling water and a housewarming bag filled with snacks and a candle that smelled like linen. I laughed when I saw it. 2 on the nose, I said. Exactly why I picked it, she grinned. That night, after we unpacked the mattress and a couple of plates, Derek and I sat on the living room floor with takeout boxes between us. The walls were bare. The echoes still loud. But we had chairs on the way. And time. And light. And for once, I wasn't carrying the weight of someone else's silence. I was carrying my own voice. Before bed, I opened my notebook, the one I'd packed last, and wrote a single sentence on the first blank page. She didn't call. Then below it, in smaller letters. And I didn't need her to.